It was her birthday. She was waiting for the surprise, the cute plan, the big moment, the wow, you really know me kind of thing. And me, I gave her reality. Not because I wanted to be cruel, not because I forgot, not because I didn't care, because it was the only gift that made sense anymore. See, for months, I'd been doing this quiet little magic trick in our apartment. I made everything run: bills, groceries, cleaning, planning, fixing the small stuff before it became big stuff, the kind of work that doesn't look like love until it stops happening. And the scary part is, I didn't even notice how far it had gone until her birthday put a spotlight on it. Because in that one day, I realized something that hit me like a brick. Some people don't fall in love with you. They fall in love with what you provide. And when they don't get the performance they expected, they don't ask what's wrong. They get offended. So yeah, I planned something for her birthday. Just not the kind of surprise she wanted. I set the table, I sat her down, I handed her one envelope, and the second she opened it, her smile disappeared. Not slowly, not awkwardly, instantly. Like she just realized the gift wasn't a necklace, it was a mirror. And that's when I knew this wasn't going to be a birthday story. This was going to be the day our relationship finally got audited. Before I get into what happened on her birthday, you need the background, because from the outside, we probably looked like one of those normal, stable couples people envy. I'm 29, I work a pretty structured job, project management for a tech company. It's not glamorous, but it's steady, and my brain basically runs on checklists. I'm the guy who pays the credit card before the due date, sets reminders for oil changes, and somehow always knows when we're low on laundry detergent without anyone saying a word. She's 27. She's the opposite of me in almost every way, in a way that felt perfect at first. She does freelance design and social media work, sometimes for small brands, sometimes for friends of friends. Her schedule is fluid. Some weeks she's booked solid and working late into the night. Other weeks she's got huge stretches of time where she's brainstorming or getting inspired. She's creative, spontaneous, funny, and she can make a random Tuesday feel like something worth celebrating. So naturally, we did what couples like us always do. We called it balance. When we moved in together, it wasn't some rushed, desperate thing. We'd been dating long enough to know each other's habits. We'd practically been living together anyway. Her staying at my place 3 nights a week, me at hers on weekends, half our stuff floating between apartments like we were slowly merging without admitting it. Then her lease ended, my place was closer to both our lives, and it made financial sense. We found a 1-bedroom apartment in a decent area. Nothing fancy, but not depressing either. 2nd floor, lots of natural light. A small balcony we swore we'd use more than we actually did. The rent was $1, $850 a month plus utilities. Not cheap, but manageable. I could afford it alone if I had to, but together it felt like we could finally breathe a little. The first month we had the talk every couple has when they're trying to be mature about it. We agreed to split the rent. We said we'd split groceries. We said we'd rotate chores. We even joked about making a chore chart like we were roommates in college. And for a while, it actually worked. At the beginning, she'd do the cute domestic stuff. She'd light candles when she cleaned. She'd rearrange the living room because she felt like the energy was off. She'd cook these random meals that were either amazing or borderline inedible, but the effort was there and it was charming. I did the practical stuff. I set up auto pay for rent. I made sure we had renter's insurance. I called the internet company and sat on hold for 40 minutes because the router kept cutting out. I bought a vacuum that didn't suck. Ironically, because it actually worked. And that division made sense to me, because I told myself, she brings the vibe, I bring the structure, we're a team. Our daily routine fell into a pattern, fast. I'm up around 6:30, coffee, quick shower, check my calendar, out the door by 7:45. I'm the kind of person who needs the morning to be quiet, like my brain is booting up. She usually wakes up later. Sometimes she's up with me, sometimes she sleeps until 9:30. If she has a meeting, she'll get dressed, throw on makeup, and suddenly she's the most put-together person you've ever seen. If she doesn't, she's in sweatpants with her hair in a messy bun, sitting cross-legged on the couch with her laptop, fully convinced she's about to lock in and create something brilliant. At night, I'd come home around 6. She'd either be in the middle of work, or she'd be watching some show, or she'd be scrolling, or she'd be deep in one of those I'm reorganizing my life moods where she'd be making a vision board on Pinterest. And here's the thing, none of that bothered me. What bothered me later was what started happening quietly underneath all of it. Because running an apartment isn't just chores. It's 1,000 small decisions. It's noticing the trash is full. It's remembering the power bill is due. It's realizing you're out of dishwasher pods before you're standing there with a sink full of plates. It's making sure there's toilet paper in the bathroom before it becomes an emergency. At first, we both did those things. Then, slowly, without anyone officially agreeing to it, it became me. Not because she sat me down and demanded it, nothing dramatic like that. It was subtler. It was a pattern of tiny moments where if I didn't do something, it just wouldn't happen. If the bathroom needed cleaning, she'd say, "Ugh, we should really clean this weekend," and then weekend would come and go and it would still be gross until I handled it. If groceries were low, she'd say, "We need food," like the universe was supposed to deliver it, and then I'd stop at the store on the way home because I didn't feel like living off dry cereal. If a bill came in, she'd glance at it like it was written in another language and go, "Do you want me to Venmo you?" Which sounds fair in theory, except it always came with this subtle tone like I was being extra for caring about it. And the worst part? I didn't push back. Because in the beginning, I genuinely thought it was temporary. I told myself she was adjusting. I told myself freelance work is chaotic. I told myself she contributed in other ways. I told myself it wasn't worth turning into that guy who makes everything transactional. I also told myself something else, something I didn't realize was dangerous. If I just keep things smooth, we'll be happy. So I kept smoothing things over. I paid the rent on time every time, I tracked the utilities, I handled the internet, I dealt with the landlord, I made the target runs, I fixed the wobbly cabinet door, I replaced the batteries in the smoke detector when it started chirping at 2 a.m. And if she was stressed, I made it easier. If she had a big project, I picked up the slack. If she had a bad day, I ordered her favorite food. If she forgot something, I didn't make it a fight, I just covered it. Because that's what you do when you're building a life with someone, right? That's what I thought. And at first, it even felt romantic in a weird way. Like, look at us. Playing house, growing up, being adults. But the implicit contract of living together, the unspoken agreement that you're both carrying the weight, started breaking down, not loudly, not with screaming, just quietly. It shifted from "we're partners" to "I'm the operations department." And she didn't seem to notice the shift at all, because from her perspective, nothing was wrong. The lights stayed on. The fridge stayed full. The apartment stayed functional. Life kept flowing. Which, I'll be honest, is exactly how you end up in this situation. Because when you're the one doing the invisible work, you don't get thanked for it, you get expected. And when you're not being appreciated, you start paying attention to what is being demanded. That's why her birthday mattered. Because her birthday wasn't just a day, it was a spotlight. It was a test of what she thought she was owed and what she thought I was there for. And by the time we got to that week, I wasn't thinking, how do I make her feel special? I was thinking, does she even realize I've been holding this whole thing together? At that point, the equity we started with, the cute little dream of splitting life evenly, wasn't gone because she was evil. It was gone because it had become automatic that I'd handle it. And I let it, because I thought I was building something. I didn't realize I was training her to expect it. It didn't snap all at once. That's the part people don't understand, unless they've lived it. It wasn't like she woke up one day and announced, "Congratulations, you're now responsible for everything." It was a slow drift. 1,000 tiny moments that didn't feel worth fighting over individually, until you look up and realize you're basically living with a really affectionate roommate who also happens to be your dependent. And the way it showed up was never dramatic. It was the kind of stuff you could easily explain away if you wanted to keep the peace. Like the bills. The utility emails would come in, and I'd see them first because my name was on most of the accounts. I'd open them, check the amount, make sure nothing looked weird, schedule the payment. Sometimes I'd mention it casually, "Hey, electric was a little higher this month," and she'd nod like she heard me, but her eyes would already be back on her phone. Every now and then she'd throw out, "Do you want me to Venmo you?" like it was a generous offer. And I'd say, "Yeah, sure," and then it would take 3 reminders. Not angry reminders, just little nudges. "Hey, can you send that when you get a second?" "Babe, did you see my text?" "All right, I'm paying it today. Can you Venmo me by tonight?" And she'd respond the same way every time, like she was doing me a favor by participating in our shared life. "Oh my God, yes, sorry, I totally forgot." But she never forgot things she actually cared about. That's what started landing differently. Then there was groceries. I would keep this running mental inventory without even thinking about it. We're low on coffee, we're out of chicken, we need eggs, the dish soap is almost gone. I'd stop at the store on the way home, grab everything, come back, put it away. Sometimes I'd ask her to pick up something if she was out. Can you grab paper towels when you're near a store? And she'd say, yeah, of course. And then nothing. I'd come home and ask, did you get them? And she'd hit me with this bright, innocent smile like forgetting was adorable. Ugh, no, I got distracted. Distracted? Doing what? That's the thing. She'd never really have a clear answer. She'd been running around or had a lot on her mind or was just so stressed. So I'd go get them. Because what was I going to do? Sit in a dirty apartment and refuse to buy toilet paper on principle. And little by little, that became the pattern. She would agree to do things, and I would actually do them. Cleaning was even worse, because cleaning is one of those things that's invisible until it isn't. She'd notice mess when it was at a level that offended her aesthetic. Like, if the living room looked cluttered, she'd suddenly get motivated and go on a rampage. Straightening pillows, lighting a candle, wiping the coffee table like she was staging a photo shoot. But the unglamorous cleaning, the stuff that actually keeps a place livable? Bathroom grime, kitchen grease, the trash that needs to be taken out before it smells, the fridge drawer that has that mysterious sticky spot, the floors that need more than a quick sweep. That was me. I'd come home and see the sink full, the counter sticky, the trash overflowing, and she'd say, we should really clean this weekend. We, she always said. We should. But we somehow meant you eventually. Weekend would come, and she'd wake up late, lounge around, start a show, suddenly decide she needed to run errands, and by the time she got back, it was evening, and she'd be like, ugh, today flew by. Meanwhile, I'd have already cleaned half the apartment because I can't relax in a space that feels chaotic. Sometimes she'd look up from the couch while I was wiping down the kitchen and say, babe, you don't have to do all that right now. But she wouldn't stand up and help. She'd just say it in a tone like my effort was my own personal compulsion. And then came the maintenance stuff, little repairs, little responsibilities that seem small until you realize how often they happen. The shower head started leaking. I fixed it. The internet cut out. I called. The landlord sent an email about a building inspection. I responded. Our kitchen light started flickering. I replaced the bulb. The smoke detector started chirping at 2 a.m. I got up and changed the battery while she rolled over and mumbled, "What is that?" Like I was the designated adult. Even appointments became my job. Not just my own stuff. Ours. I'd remember when the rent was due. I'd schedule the car maintenance. I'd plan around our calendars. If we had a dinner with her friends, I'd check the time, map the route, make sure we weren't late. And if we were late, somehow it would still be my fault, because I was the one who cares about schedules. That's when her go-to lines started coming out more often, not aggressively, almost casually, like they were cute. Babe, you're just better at this stuff. That line sounds like a compliment until you realize what it means in practice. I don't have to. And whenever I'd push even slightly, like, hey, can you handle the groceries this week? She'd get this look like I'd insulted her. Don't be a spreadsheet boyfriend. She literally said that once, like it was funny. Don't do the accountant thing, she'd say. It's not that serious. If I tried to explain that it wasn't about the money, it was about the imbalance, she'd wave it off. Dude, it's just a phase. Things have been crazy. It'll level out. That was another one of her favorites. It'll level out. Because it'll level out always meant you'll keep doing it until I feel like changing. And again, here's what matters. I wasn't furious, not outwardly. I wasn't screaming. I wasn't slamming doors. I wasn't picking fights. It was worse than that. It was quiet. It was that slow internal accumulation, like every time I did something for us that she didn't even notice, another tiny weight got added to a backpack I didn't realize I was wearing. You know when you're carrying groceries in from the car and you keep saying one more bag because you don't want to take 2 trips, and at first it's fine. And then suddenly your fingers are going numb and you're walking weird and you're thinking, why am I doing this? But you keep going because you're already committed to not making a second trip. That's what living with her started to feel like. I'd do one more thing, and one more thing, and one more thing. And every time I told myself it was temporary, that she'd notice, that she'd step up, that she'd appreciate it. But she didn't step up. She stepped into the comfort. And what really messed with my head is that she wasn't cruel about it. She wasn't sitting there like a villain twirling her hair going, yes, serve me. She was loving. She was affectionate. She'd cuddle up to me and say, you're the best. She'd post pictures of us like we were this perfect couple. She'd brag about me to her friends like I was this amazing boyfriend. But the love was selective. She loved the version of me that made her life easier. And the more I noticed that, the harder it became to ignore the imbalance. Then came the narrative spia, the thing that made it personal in a way I couldn't rationalize away. My birthday. Not the one from years ago, my most recent one. We were already living together at that point. I didn't want some huge party. I'm not that guy. I just wanted to feel like she saw me, like she'd put in effort without me having to ask. I had hinted about one specific thing I wanted. Nothing crazy. Just a small, thoughtful gift, and honestly, the gift itself wasn't even the point. The point was the thought. And on my birthday, she woke up late, rolled over, smiled at me, and said, "Happy birthday, babe." That was it. No plan, no card. No, I made reservations. No, I got you something. Later that day, she suggested we go out somewhere, but she hadn't picked a place. She hadn't made a reservation. She hadn't even checked if anything was open. It was like she was offering the idea of celebrating me. So I did what I always did. I picked the restaurant. I made the reservation, I drove, I paid. And she was happy. She took pictures, she posted them. She captioned it something like, "Celebrating my favorite person." And I remember standing in the bathroom that night, brushing my teeth, staring at myself in the mirror and thinking, did I just plan my own birthday again? It was such a small moment, but it planted something in me, a kind of clarity. Because it wasn't about a gift, it wasn't about a dinner, it was about what it revealed. When it came time for effort, for planning, for carrying something emotional on her own, she defaulted to letting me do it. And once you see that, you start noticing it everywhere. So by the time her birthday started creeping up, it wasn't just her birthday. It was a test I didn't even want to give, because I already knew what she expected. I already knew she wanted the kind of birthday where she felt adored, surprised, celebrated, made to feel like the center of the universe. And honestly, I didn't mind doing that for someone I felt was my partner. But what I couldn't stop thinking about was this. When was the last time she surprised me? When was the last time she carried something without me managing it? When was the last time she made my life easier the way I made hers easier every single day? And the scariest part was, I didn't have a good answer. I just had that quiet backpack of resentment that I refused to call resentment, that silent tally I swore I wasn't keeping, until I realized I was. And her birthday was about to force it into the open. Her birthday didn't just come up, it started circling us like a satellite weeks in advance. At first it was subtle, the way she'd casually bring it up like it wasn't a big deal, while also making sure it stayed in the air. We'd be in the kitchen making coffee and she'd go, almost offhand, "So my birthday is coming up." Not "my birthday is coming up," like a calendar reminder. More like a weather forecast. A warning. Then she'd smile at me like it was a joke, but she'd watch my face when she said it, like she was checking for a reaction. A few days later, we're driving somewhere and she sees an ad for some fancy restaurant. "Ooh," she says, "that place is so cute. I've always wanted to go." And she doesn't say we should go sometime. She says it and then glances at me, quick, like she's leaving breadcrumbs and making sure I'm following. Then the wish list stuff started. Again, not direct, but constant. She'd send me links, like it was casual. Not, "Hey, can you get me this for my birthday?" More like, "This is sue me," or "obsessed." Or the classic, "I'm not saying I want this, but if someone did get it for me, I wouldn't be mad." And in person, she'd do the same thing. We'd walk past a jewelry store and she'd slow down just a little. "Cute," she'd say, leaning toward the display. "I love simple gold stuff." We'd pass by a flower stand at the grocery store and she'd do this dramatic sigh. "I love flowers," she'd say, "like real flowers, not the sad grocery store ones." And if I didn't respond the way she wanted, she'd throw in a tiny jab, like a little needle. "Must be nice," she'd say, "to date someone who plans things. Or some girls get surprised, some girls just don't." And she'd laugh, always laugh, like she wasn't really saying it, but she was. I started noticing the pattern. She was building a story around her birthday, not just, "I hope my boyfriend does something nice." More like, "This birthday proves something." And that's when it clicked for me. She wasn't just asking for a gift. She was asking for confirmation. Confirmation that she was worth effort, that she was the priority, that she could expect to be taken care of, which would be totally normal if that confirmation went both ways. But in our relationship, it didn't. Because I was already confirming her every day in 100 invisible ways, keeping the apartment running, keeping things stable, making sure life didn't fall apart. Her birthday wasn't about receiving a present. It was about receiving proof. Proof that I would keep playing the role she'd gotten comfortable with. And here's the thing. Once I realized that, the whole vibe changed for me. Because I wasn't hearing, "I want a sweet birthday." I was hearing, "I want you to perform. I want you to plan. I want you to anticipate. I want you to spend. I want you to surprise me. I want you to show me I'm special in a way that's visible and shareable." And the more she hinted, the more I noticed what she wasn't doing. She wasn't asking how I was feeling. She wasn't checking in. She wasn't saying, "Hey, I know things have been stressful. Are you okay?" It was like the relationship narrowed down into one lane, her expectations. So I started doing something I'd never really done before. I stopped reacting, not in a childish, silent treatment way, in a data-gathering way. When she dropped a hint, I'd just nod. When she sent a link, I'd just say, "Oh, nice." When she made a comment like, "I expect something special," I'd look at her and go, "Yeah?" And she'd push a little more because she could feel I wasn't biting. "You're being weird," she'd say. I'd shrug. "How?" "You're usually more excited," she'd say, like my excitement was another thing she expected me to provide. And I'd keep it simple. "I'm listening." That became my thing, calm, neutral, observant. And it drove her crazy. Because she wanted reassurance. She wanted me to say, "Don't worry, I've got you." She wanted that warm, confident boyfriend energy that tells her she can relax and just wait for the magic. But I wasn't giving that away anymore. Not because I wanted to punish her, because I wanted to see the truth. I wanted to see what happened when I didn't immediately fill the role. And what I saw was telling. She got more intense. The hints got sharper. She started making comparisons. "My friends' boyfriends are so cute," she said one night, scrolling through Instagram. Like, look what he did for her birthday. And she shows me a video of some dude who rented out a rooftop and put up balloons and had a photographer and a cake, and it looked like a brand deal. And she's staring at the screen with this dreamy expression, then she looks at me like I'm supposed to be taking notes. "I'm not asking for all that," she says quickly. "I'm just saying effort is attractive." Effort. That word became her favorite. Effort meant flowers, reservations, gifts, a plan, a surprise. Effort did not mean splitting chores, remembering bills, or picking up groceries. It meant visible romance. And I'm not anti-romance. I'm not some emotionless robot. But when someone starts treating romance like a performance review, you can feel it. You can feel the pressure underneath it. You can feel that it's less, "I want to celebrate us," and more, "I want to be validated." And again, validation is normal. What wasn't normal was the imbalance. Because I couldn't stop thinking about my birthday, how I'd quietly planned my own celebration while she smiled for pictures, like she'd done something. And I couldn't stop thinking about all the other moments where I carried the weight without recognition. So her birthday started feeling like this fork in the road. Either I do what I always do, overfunction, overgive, overprovide, and call it love, or I finally acknowledge the truth, that the relationship had turned into a one-way system, and her birthday was about to cash in on that system one more time. And I made a decision I didn't even fully admit to myself at first. I decided she was going to get confirmation, just not the kind she wanted. Because she wanted confirmation that she was special. I wanted confirmation that we were partners. And I realized something kind of brutal. If I gave her exactly what she was hinting for, big romance, big surprise, I wasn't just giving her a birthday. I was reinforcing the dynamic. I was teaching her, keep expecting, he'll deliver. So I did what I'd been avoiding for months. I decided that on her birthday, I was going to stop giving her reassurance for free. I was going to make her look at the relationship the way I'd been forced to look at it. And once I made that decision, everything felt different. Because now, her birthday wasn't a celebration. It was a test. And the twist is, she didn't even know she'd already started taking it. The week before her birthday, the hints stopped being hints. They turned into pressure. It was like she could feel that I wasn't feeding her the reassurance she wanted, so she started turning the volume up. More comments, more jokes, more little tests designed to force me to confirm that I was handling it. Monday night, we're eating dinner on the couch, and she's scrolling through her phone like she's bored. Then, without looking up, she goes, "So, my birthday's in 4 days." I just nodded. "Yeah, I know." She finally looks at me. "You're being weirdly calm about it." I'm calm, I said. She smirks. That's suspicious. I didn't take the bait. I just kept eating. And she didn't like that. Because when someone is used to you managing everything, your calm feels like negligence to them, even when you haven't done anything wrong. Tuesday, she starts the passive-aggressive stuff. We walk past a flower shop on the way back from grabbing coffee, and she slows down just enough for me to notice. Wow, she says, staring into the window. Those are gorgeous. I look in. Yeah, they are. She turns her head slightly. Some people get surprised with flowers. Must be nice. I kept walking. I guess it is. She scoffs like I'm missing the point on purpose. Wednesday, it escalates again. She starts casually bringing up other people's birthdays. My friend Jenna's boyfriend planned this whole thing. She says while we're cooking. He took her to this rooftop dinner, and there was this cute little cake, and honestly, it was just thoughtful. I'm chopping vegetables. That's cool. She watches me for a second. If you didn't do anything for my birthday, I'd be so sad. I pause. Not dramatically, just enough to acknowledge it. I'm not planning to do nothing, I said. She smiles, relieved for half a second, then immediately tries to push further. Okay, but what are you doing? And that's where it started feeling less like excitement and more like a demand for access. Like she needed to verify I was performing. That night, she got extra affectionate in this very specific way. Clingy, sweet, overly touchy. The kind of affection that doesn't feel like love, it feels like negotiation. She's cuddled up against me in bed, tracing circles on my chest, and she goes, "So, what time should I be ready on Friday?" I stared at the ceiling. Ready for what? She sits up a little. For my birthday. Are we going somewhere? Should I dress up? There it was. Not a question, a test. And in that moment, I realized something really important. She wasn't asking because she was curious. She was asking because she wanted control. If she knew what I was doing, she could judge it, approve it, compare it, decide in advance whether it was enough. The entire point of a surprise is that you don't know, you trust someone. She didn't want a surprise. She wanted proof. I kept my voice calm. Just be ready. Her eyes narrowed slightly. Be ready? How? Just be ready, I repeated. She laughs, but it's not a happy laugh. It's a tense one. Okay, Mr. Secret Agent, she says. I swear, if you do something lame, I'm going to be so mad. That line wasn't playful. It was a warning wrapped in a smile. And again, I wasn't angry. Not yet. I was noticing. I was watching how quickly her I'm excited energy turned into I'm entitled energy the second she didn't get immediate reassurance. Thursday night, the night before, was the real turning point. We'd had a long day. Work was brutal for me. She'd been stressed about a client, and the apartment looked like a tornado hit it because neither of us had cleaned in a few days. I come home, take off my shoes, and immediately step on something sticky on the floor. I look down. It's spilled soda. Dried, like it's been there for hours. I walk into the kitchen, and the sink is full. The trash is overflowing. There are takeout containers on the counter, and her laptop is open on the table like she's been working in the middle of chaos. She's sitting on the couch, scrolling, and she looks up at me and goes, cheerful as ever. Hi, babe! I just stood there for a second, taking it all in, not just the mess. The pattern. Because I knew what was about to happen. I was going to end up cleaning it. I was going to take out the trash. I was going to reset the apartment because I can't live like that, and she was going to benefit from it without even thinking. And then, on top of that, she was going to expect a birthday surprise like I hadn't already been doing invisible labor all week. I set my bag down slowly. She tilts her head. What? Nothing, I said. Then she sits up a little like she suddenly remembers something. Oh, she says, bright. Tomorrow's the day. Yep, I said. And she smiles in this way that's almost childlike, like she's proud of herself for being cute. I'm so excited, she says. I've been waiting. I nodded again. Cool. And that's when her face changes. She picks up on the fact that I'm not playing along. What is your problem? She asks, not loudly, but sharp. I don't have a problem, I said. She crosses her arms. You're acting like you don't care. I looked at her. I care. Then why are you being so weird? She presses. Like you're not saying anything. You're not excited. You're not. Not performing, I thought. I took a breath. I'm fine. And she does this little eye roll like I'm being difficult. Then she hits me with the line, the one that turned it from birthday excitement into something uglier. So what did you plan? I didn't answer right away because I wanted to be sure my tone stayed even. She leans forward. Seriously, what did you plan? Like, do I need to book my nails? Are we going somewhere expensive? Am I wearing heels? Every question was really the same question. How big is this going to be? How much are you about to prove you love me? And she said it in that tone, half teasing, half interrogating, like if I gave the wrong answer, I'd fail. I kept my voice calm, almost neutral. I'm putting something together. Her eyes widened just a little. Like what? I said I'm putting something together, I repeated. She stares at me. Okay, but tell me. No, I said, not harsh, just firm. That no landed like a slap. Her whole posture stiffened. Why not? Because it's supposed to be a surprise, I said. She laughs again, but this time it's pure disbelief. Okay, she says slowly, but like, I need to know what I'm walking into. And there it was. That sentence. Not I trust you. Not I'm excited. I need to know. I looked around the apartment at the mess, the overflowing trash, the sink full of dishes, the sticky floor. And then I looked back at her. And I realized the problem wasn't the surprise. The problem was the system. Because in her mind, my role was to manage everything. Our home, our life, the logistics, the planning, and her role was to show up and receive it. She wasn't asking me what I planned because she was curious. She was asking because she felt entitled to the output of my effort without ever questioning the input I'd been carrying. And in that moment, I felt something shift. Not anger. Clarity. I said, calmly, you'll see tomorrow. She narrows her eyes. If you're messing with me. I'm not, I said. She shakes her head like I'm unbelievable. You're being such a jerk right now. I didn't even respond to that. I just turned, walked into the kitchen, and started picking up the takeout containers. And she watches me, and I can feel her waiting for me to apologize. Waiting for me to soften. Waiting for me to go back to the version of me that reassures her, even when she's being unfair. But I didn't. Because that night, standing in that messy apartment, I finally understood something that made my stomach drop. She didn't want a boyfriend who loved her. She wanted a boyfriend who delivered. And tomorrow, on her birthday, she was about to find out what happens when delivery gets canceled. That night, after she went to bed, I didn't storm around the apartment, I didn't slam cabinets, I didn't text my friends like, bro, you won't believe what she said. I did the thing I always do when something feels off and I can't ignore it anymore. I got quiet. I sat at the kitchen table, turned on the small lamp, and opened my laptop like I was about to work. Because in a way, I was, just not for my job. For the first time in months, I stopped asking myself, how do I keep this smooth, and started asking, what is actually happening here? And I made myself a rule right away. This wasn't going to be a takedown. No petty screenshots, no dramatic gotcha montage, no humiliation. If I was going to do this, it had to be clean, adult, undeniable. Something you could look at and disagree with emotionally, but you couldn't call it a lie. So I made what I kept calling, half as a joke, half because it was true, a dossier, a reality check folder. I opened a blank document and typed a title at the top. Our shared life, split plus responsibilities, current. And I just stared at it for a second, because even seeing those words made me feel like the villain in her story. But then I remembered the sticky soda on the floor, the overflowing trash, the sink full of dishes, the way she said, I need to know what I'm walking into. And I thought, no, I'm not the villain. I'm the only one looking at the whole picture. I started with money, because money is the simplest thing to measure, even when it's not the most important. I pulled up our rent payments. Same every month. Easy. Then utilities, electric, internet, gas. I wasn't trying to make a point with the numbers, just show the pattern. I went back through our shared Venmo history, my bank transactions, the emails, and what hit me wasn't that she never paid. She did pay sometimes. It was that the system depended on me to make it happen. I paid first, I reminded, I followed up, I tracked. If I didn't initiate it, it didn't exist. So I didn't just list totals, I listed the process. Electric bill, I receive it, I pay it, I request half afterward. Internet, in my name, auto pay on my card, reimbursement requested. Groceries, 70% purchased by me, weekly runs, occasional split. Then I stopped, because I could already hear her voice in my head. Why are you making everything about money? So I moved to what I actually cared about. Time, effort, the invisible labor. I opened my notes app and started doing something that felt ridiculous at first, like I was being dramatic. I wrote down the recurring things that kept our apartment functioning. Not, we cleaned once. The constant stuff. Trash, dishes, bathroom. Floors, laundry, groceries, household supplies. Scheduling, repairs, communication with the landlord, returning packages, coordinating plans, making sure we had food, making sure we had toilet paper, making sure we didn't get late fees, making sure the place didn't slowly turn into chaos. Then I made 2 columns. Typically me, typically her. And I forced myself to be fair. I didn't want to paint her as useless, because she wasn't. She wasn't sitting on the couch like a cartoon villain while I scrubbed the floors. She did things sometimes when she felt like it, when she had the energy, when it matched her mood. So I wrote those down too. She'd do a deep clean of the living room occasionally. She'd cook sometimes, especially when she was in a homey mood. She'd organize the pantry once in a while. She'd decorate. She'd make the apartment feel cute. And I made myself put that on the list because I wasn't trying to erase her contributions. I was trying to stop pretending the contributions were equal. Then I got more specific. Instead of writing cleaning, I broke it down. Bathroom, scrub toilet / shower / sink, weekly. Kitchen, wipe counters, clean stovetop, empty sink, daily / near daily. Floors, vacuum / sweep / mop, weekly. Trash / recycling, take out, replace bags every 1 to 2 days. Laundry, wash / dry / fold, restock basics, weekly. And next to each one I wrote who actually did it most of the time. That part was uncomfortable, because it was so obvious on paper. The more detailed I got, the less I could lie to myself. Then I did the thing that made it feel like an actual gift, the part that turned this from venting into a plan. I created a simple schedule. Nothing condescending, no gold stars, no you failed. Just a clean adult division of responsibilities. I opened a calendar template and made weekly assignments. Monday, trash plus recycling. Wednesday, bathroom. Friday, floors. Daily, dishes rotate. Groceries, alternate weeks. Utilities, split and set up auto pay with automatic transfer. And here's where I got really intentional. I made it easy because I didn't want her excuse to be, I forgot or I didn't know. I added a shared note on our phones titled House Schedule with checkboxes. I set recurring reminders, not aggressive, not spammy, just 1 notification on each task day. And then I made the money part equally clean. I drafted 2 options. Option A, 50-50 split. Rent, half due on the 1st. Utilities, half due when billed. Groceries / household, alternate weeks or split at the end of the month. Option B, proportional split if her income fluctuated. Rent, fixed percentage based on monthly income. Utilities, same percentage. Groceries, same percentage. With a monthly reset so it didn't become a fight. I wasn't doing this to squeeze her. I wasn't trying to win. I was trying to make the relationship sustainable. Then I printed it. That was important to me because on a screen, people can argue forever. They can scroll away. They can dismiss it as you being dramatic. Printed paper feels official. It feels real. So I printed 3 pages, a 1-page summary of the imbalance in plain language, the chore / calendar plan, simple, readable, not patronizing, the split options, 50-50 and proportional, and then I put it all in 1 clean envelope. No angry note, no sarcastic message, no since you never do anything. Just the envelope. I even wrote happy birthday on the front in simple handwriting, which felt insane, but I wanted to prove something to myself. This wasn't revenge. This was honesty. And then, sitting there at the table with that envelope, I had this moment where I almost backed out. Because I could already picture her reaction. The disappointment, the outrage, the way she'd tell her friends I ruined her birthday, the way she'd look at me like I was heartless. And for a second I thought, maybe I should just do the normal thing. Flowers, dinner, smile, keep the peace. But then I realized what keeping the peace had actually meant in our relationship. It meant I lied. I lied with my effort. I lied with my silence. I lied by pretending I was fine while quietly carrying more and more weight. I lied by treating my own resentment like it was something I had to manage alone. So I slid the envelope into the top drawer of my desk, underneath some random papers, like I was hiding contraband. And I sat back and took a breath. And I said it out loud to myself because I needed to hear it. I don't want to punish her. I want to stop lying to myself. That was the real gift. Not the paper, not the numbers. The moment I decided I wasn't going to play dumb anymore. After that, I did one more thing. I set the apartment up for the next day like I was preparing for a meeting, not a date. I cleaned the kitchen. I cleared the table. I put 2 chairs facing each other so it felt intentional. I placed a pen next to the envelope, not as a threat, but as a tool. Because this wasn't about catching her. It was about giving her a chance to meet me in the reality I'd been living in the whole time. Then I went to bed. And she was already asleep, peaceful, curled up under the blanket like the world was safe and handled. I laid there staring at the ceiling, listening to her breathing, and I felt 2 emotions at once, something like grief and relief. Grief, because part of me knew the version of her birthday she wanted was already gone. Relief, because for the first time in a long time, I wasn't bracing myself to carry everything and call it love. Tomorrow, she was going to open that envelope. And no matter what she said afterward, one thing was already true. I had finally stopped pretending. Her birthday morning started the way birthdays are supposed to start. Light, excited, full of that electric something's going to happen energy. I woke up before her like I usually did. Same routine. Coffee, quiet, the apartment still dim and cold. The difference was that my stomach felt tight, like I'd swallowed a rock, and it was just sitting there. I moved around the kitchen, slowly, deliberately, not sneaking, just controlled. I didn't want to wake her up early, because I wasn't trying to ruin the day. I wasn't trying to punish her by making it tense from the start. I just knew that later, when she looked back on this, she'd say the same thing no matter what I did. You were weird all day. And she'd be right, because I couldn't fake it. Around 10, I heard her stir. The bedroom door opened and she shuffled out in one of my hoodies, hair messy, face bare, still half asleep. She walked straight to me and wrapped her arms around my waist from behind. "Birthday girl," I said softly. She smiled into my back. "It's my day." Then she pulled away and leaned against the counter, watching me like she was waiting for the first hint that I had something planned. "Good morning," she said, a little sing-song. "Morning." She tilted her head. "That's it? No, happy birthday again?" I gave her a small smile. "Happy birthday." "Okay," she said, pretending to be offended. "So when do I get spoiled?" There it was. Spoiled. Not celebrated. Not loved. Spoiled. I kept it neutral. Later. She narrowed her eyes like she was trying to read me. Later like brunch? Dinner? Both? Later, I repeated. She rolled her eyes, laughing, but it wasn't fully playful. "You're being so secretive. It's kind of annoying." I didn't respond. I just poured her coffee. She took it, sipped, and immediately picked up her phone, like the clock was running, and she needed to be ready for whatever content-worthy moment was about to happen. The day moved in slow motion. She stayed in that excited mode, but I could tell she was also monitoring me. Every time I went into another room, she'd glance up. Every time I checked my phone, she'd watch my expression. Every time there was a notification sound, she'd perk up, like maybe it was a reservation confirmation or a delivery notification or a text from someone helping me set up balloons. And I didn't give her anything. Not because I wanted to tease her. Because if I gave her reassurance, I'd lose my nerve. Around noon, she disappeared into the bedroom to get ready. And she didn't just get ready, she performed readiness. I heard drawers opening and closing. I heard the hairdryer. I heard music playing, one of those main character playlists. She came out an hour later looking incredible. Hair done, makeup on, a fitted outfit that was obviously chosen for photos, not comfort. She stood in the doorway and did a slow little turn. "Well?" she asked. "You look nice," I said. "Nice?" she repeated, laughing like I'd called a designer dress cute. "Try again." "You look really good," I corrected. She seemed satisfied, but only for a second. Then she picked up her phone again. "Okay," she said, already filming herself in the front camera. "So what are we doing?" I took a breath. "Before we go anywhere, I want to do something here." Her face brightened instantly. "Wait, here? Like you did something in the apartment?" The hope in her voice was almost painful, like she'd been holding her breath all day and finally thought she could exhale. She walked toward the living room, looking around like she expected to see decorations. Balloons, flowers, a cake, maybe her friends jumping out of the closet. And there was nothing. Just the apartment, clean but plain. Her smile flickered for half a second. Then she recovered fast. Okay, she said slowly, still trying to keep it cute. So, what's the plan? I didn't answer right away. I walked to the kitchen and pulled out 2 chairs, setting them at the table facing each other. It wasn't dramatic. It wasn't aggressive. It looked like a conversation. A meeting. Then I opened the drawer and took out the envelope. I placed it in the center of the table. Clean, flat, like a contract. She stood there holding her phone at chest level, still recording out of habit, and her expression shifted from excitement to confusion. "What is that?" she asked. "It's for you," I said. She took a step closer. Is it tickets? Like a trip?" Her voice went up on the last word, hopeful. I sat down first, not because I was trying to dominate anything, but because I needed my body to be still. If I stayed standing, I knew I'd start pacing. "It's a gift," I said carefully. She walked around the table and sat across from me, the chair scraping the floor. She set her phone down next to her like she wasn't sure whether she should keep filming. Her eyes stayed locked on the envelope. "Okay," she said, forcing a smile. "Why are you being so serious?" "I'm not trying to be serious," I said. "I'm trying to be honest." That word, honest, made her blink like she'd heard something she didn't like. She touched the envelope with her fingertips, tapping it lightly. "Can I open it?" "Yes." She slid her nail under the flap, slow and careful, like she didn't want to ruin whatever was inside. And while she opened it, there was this weird silence where you could hear everything. The hum of the fridge, a car passing outside, the faint sound of someone's TV through the wall. She pulled the pages out and looked down. For a second, she smiled, like she was still assuming it was romantic, like maybe it was a letter. Like maybe it was some heartfelt thing where I poured my feelings onto paper. Then her eyes moved across the first page. The smile didn't fade dramatically. It just shut off, like a light switch. Her eyebrows pulled together, her mouth tightened. She looked up at me, and the air changed. "What is this?" she asked, sharper now. "It's what I've been trying to say without starting a fight," I said. She looked back down, scanning. Numbers. Lists. Headings. She flipped to the second page, the calendar layout, the checkboxes. Then she flipped to the third, the split options. Her breathing changed, faster, shallower, like her body recognized threat before her brain could frame it. "You made me a chore chart?" she said, like she couldn't believe the words coming out of her mouth. "It's not a chore chart," I said, keeping my voice calm. "It's a breakdown of how we live." Her eyes snapped up. "On my birthday?" I held her gaze. "Yes." She leaned back in her chair like I'd pushed her. And that's the moment you could actually see the story in her head cracking. Because she didn't walk into that day expecting a conversation about fairness. She walked into it expecting romance as a reward, proof that she was adored, proof that she was worth spoiling, proof that her expectations were being met. And what she got instead was accountability. There were these tiny pauses, micro-silences, where I could tell she was trying to decide how to respond. Like she was looking for the right tactic. Disappointment? Anger? Tears? A joke to brush it off? She landed on disbelief first. "This is so." She looked down again and scoffed. "This is insane." I didn't react. I just sat there, hands folded, steady. Not cold. Clear. She stared at the paper like it was offensive, then looked back at me like I was offensive. And I could feel the tension building, not as yelling yet, but as pressure, like a storm rolling in. Because in her mind, I had failed the birthday test. And in mine, she was about to fail something much bigger. I kept my voice low, measured. "Before you say anything," I said, "just read it." She hesitated, then looked down again, jaw tight. And the room stayed quiet while she read. Except this time, it wasn't birthday quiet. It was the kind of quiet that happens right before everything changes. She sat there staring at the pages like they were contaminated. Her eyes moved, but not smoothly, more like she was scanning for the part that would explain why this was happening, the part where the joke landed, the part where I'd pull out plane tickets and say, "Relax, I'm messing with you." But it didn't come. She looked up at me again, and this time her voice was lower, controlled, dangerous. "Are you serious right now?" I didn't flinch. I kept my tone gentle, not soft, not apologetic, gentle. "Yeah," I said, "I am." She let out a short, humorless laugh and looked back down. She tapped the first page with her nail like she wanted to poke a hole through it. "So this is my birthday present," she said. I nodded once, in a way. She opened her mouth like she was about to unload, then stopped because she could tell I wasn't here for the fight. That threw her off. When people expect you to defend yourself and you don't, they don't know where to put their anger. So I started the way I promised myself I would. Clean. Human. No sarcasm. "Happy birthday," I said. "I do love you, and because I love you, I need to be honest." Her expression tightened at the word love, like she didn't want me to use it in this moment. I continued anyway. "I'm not doing this to embarrass you. I'm not trying to make you feel small. I'm not trying to punish you." She rolled her eyes like she didn't believe that for a second. But I kept going, because this part wasn't for her reaction, it was for my clarity. "I'm doing this because I can't keep pretending everything is fine when it isn't." She stared at me, silent. I slid the first page a little closer to her, not aggressively, just enough to anchor the conversation in something real. "This," I said, tapping the page lightly, "is what our life looks like right now, as it actually functions. Money, time, energy." Her eyes dropped back to it. I pointed to the section with the simplest numbers, the ones that were hard to argue with. "Rent and utilities," I said. "We agreed we'd split them. But what's been happening is, I pay everything first, I manage the accounts, and then I chase reimbursement. Most months, I'm covering it up front." She opened her mouth. I raised my hand slightly, not to stop her, just to ask for a second. "Just hear me." She closed her mouth, jaw tight. "Last month," I continued, "between rent, utilities, internet, groceries, household stuff, I covered about 70% of our shared expenses until you sent your half, and I had to remind you 3 times. Her eyebrows shot up. "That is not." "It is," I said, still calm, "and even if you don't like the exact percentage, the pattern is the point." She stared, breathing heavier now. So I moved to the second number, the one that hit harder than money. "The time," I said. I started tracking it, not because I'm obsessed, but because I needed to stop gaslighting myself. She flinched at that word. I wrote down what I do in a typical week to keep the apartment running, the boring stuff, the invisible stuff. I flipped to the second page for her, the one with the breakdown. "In an average week," I said, "it's around 8 to 10 hours of household work that I do. Cleaning, dishes, trash, groceries, laundry, coordination, fixing things, bills, landlord stuff." Her eyes flicked across the page. "That's ridiculous." "Is it?" I asked quietly. "Because think about it. Trash alone is every other day. Dishes are daily. Grocery run is an hour, minimum. Cleaning the bathroom is an hour. Floors are another hour. Laundry is 2 hours if you count washing, drying, folding." She looked down again, but this time her expression wasn't just anger. It was discomfort, like the math was making sense even if she hated it. Then I gave the third number, the one that wasn't about hours or dollars. "The third thing is mental load," I said. "And you can't quantify it perfectly, but you can feel it." She scoffed. "Oh my God!" "No," I said, firmer now, but still controlled. "This matters." She crossed her arms. "Okay, explain." So I did, using examples, not theory. "When the internet went out last month," I said, "you were annoyed for like 5 minutes. I spent 45 minutes on the phone, got transferred twice, and then I drove to pick up a replacement router after work." She opened her mouth, then closed it. "When the smoke detector started chirping at 2 in the morning, I continued. You rolled over and asked what it was. I got up, found the battery, fixed it, and went back to bed." Her eyes narrowed, like she wanted to call it petty. "And when we ran out of groceries 2 weeks ago, I said, you said we need food, and went back to your laptop. I stopped at the store on the way home, even though I'd had a brutal day, because I knew if I didn't do it, it wouldn't happen." She shifted in her chair. "That's not one dramatic event," I said. "That's the rhythm of our life." Then I gave her the human examples, the ones that weren't about chores, but about what it felt like. "You want a real example of how this feels?" I asked. "When I'm exhausted, I still do it. I come home after a 10-hour day, and I take out trash, I clean the kitchen, I make sure we're set up for tomorrow. Not because I love cleaning, because I don't want us living in chaos." She stared at me, silent. "And when I need something," I continued, "it doesn't land the same." Her head tilted slightly. "What do you mean?" I swallowed, because that part always felt vulnerable. "I mean, my birthday." The air changed immediately. She blinked, and her face tightened like she already knew where I was going and didn't want to go there. "On my birthday," I said, "I didn't want a huge thing. I just wanted to feel like you saw me. I wanted something thoughtful, something planned, Something that showed effort without me having to coordinate it. She rolled her eyes again, but weaker this time, more defensive than dismissive. And what happened? I asked. I planned dinner. I made the reservation. I drove. I paid. And you posted pictures like it was this perfect celebration. Her mouth opened. That's not fair. It's accurate, I said, and I didn't even make a big deal out of it because I didn't want to be the guy who complains. I leaned forward slightly. But that was the moment I realized something. When effort is required, you default to me. She stared down at the papers again, gripping the edges now. That's why your birthday matters, I said. Not because birthdays are important, because it's the one day where expectations are loud and obvious. Her voice came out sharp. So you're punishing me? I shook my head. No, I'm done pretending. There was a long pause, one of those pauses where you can feel both people deciding what kind of life they're going to have after this. Then I asked the question, the one that moved it from argument to mirror. Look at our life, I said, honestly. Do you think this is reciprocity, or do you think it's habit? Her eyes shot up. What? Reciprocity, I repeated, slow. Or habit? She scoffed, but it sounded forced. I do things. I'm not saying you do nothing, I said. I'm saying the default is me. She looked away, then back. And the reason I'm asking, I continued, is because you keep saying you want a surprise, you want to feel special, you want effort. She nodded like, yes, obviously. But effort can't only flow one direction, I said. If you want romance, that's fine. I like romance. But romance can't be the payment you demand for the work I already do. Her face hardened. Wow. I didn't back down. So here's the new frame, I said. If you want a surprise, there has to be a relationship. And if you want the relationship, there has to be equity. She laughed again, bitter this time. Equity. You sound like a podcast. I kept my voice steady. No, I said. I sound like someone who's been carrying too much for too long. I slid the third page toward her, the one with the two options. These are the options, I said, not as a threat, as a reset. She looked at it, suspicious. Option 1, 50-50, clean, simple, bills, chores, groceries, split, no reminders, no chasing, we both just do it. And option 2, I continued, if your income is uneven, we do proportional, we set a percentage. But it's still automatic, it's still fair. It still doesn't require me to manage you. She stared at the page like she was trying to find a loophole. Then she looked up at me and said, very quietly, so you're saying if I don't do chores, you won't love me? And that question would have destroyed me a year ago because it frames boundaries as cruelty. But I didn't let it. I answered calmly. I'm saying if I'm the only adult in this apartment, eventually I won't be your boyfriend. I'll be your caretaker, and then I'll resent you. Her eyes flashed. And I don't want to resent you, I said. That's why I'm doing this before it turns into a blow-up. Another pause. Her fingers tapped the paper again, faster now, like she was trying to burn off the discomfort. So that's it, she said. That's my birthday, a lecture. It's not a lecture, I said. It's the truth. She stared at me, searching for softness, for apology, for the moment where I'd cave and say, fine, forget it, let's go to dinner. But I didn't. Because the truth was, this was the first time in months I felt like I was speaking in my own life. And she could feel it. Her voice got colder. You could have done this any other day. I nodded. I could have. Then why today? She pressed. And I looked at her, completely steady, and I said the sentence that ended the illusion. Because today is the day you demand effort the loudest. And I needed you to see where that effort has been coming from. She froze. And for the first time since she opened the envelope, she didn't have a quick comeback. She just looked down at the pages again. Like she was reading something she'd never wanted to see. Like she was realizing that the gift wasn't the paper. The gift was the fact that I was finally done being taken for granted. For a few seconds after I said that, she just stared at the papers like they were going to rearrange themselves into something more flattering. Then the denial kicked in, fast. She pushed the pages away from her like they were disgusting. This is so dramatic, she said, shaking her head. Like, are you hearing yourself? I didn't move. I'm hearing myself. No, she snapped, pointing at the numbers like they were fake. You're making it sound like I'm some kind of leech. I'm not. I didn't say you were, I said evenly. But that's what you're implying, she shot back. You're implying I don't contribute? I do contribute. I nodded. You do, just not consistently, and not equally. Her eyes widened like I'd insulted her family. Oh my God, she laughed, loud and sharp. Equally. You're insane. You literally sound like a robot. And that was the first pivot. Not, are the facts true? Not, did I put too much on you? Just, you're weird for caring. Then she went for the softer version, minimizing. Okay, she said, leaning back, forcing this fake calm. So what, you cleaned a few times and now you're a martyr? I kept my voice level. It's not a few times. She waved her hand like she was swatting away a fly. You always do this. You take something small and make it into some huge moral issue. That line, you always do this, was an attempt to make my boundary a personality flaw. To make the conversation about my tone, my timing, my vibe. Not about the actual imbalance. I stayed focused. I'm not making it huge, I said. I'm naming it. She leaned forward again, eyes hard. On my birthday, she said slowly, like she was building a case in court. On the one day that's supposed to be about me, you decide to, what, hold a meeting? I didn't blink. Yes. Her face flushed instantly. And that's when the denial flipped into anger. What is wrong with you? She snapped. Normal boyfriends plan something sweet. They don't hand their girlfriend a freaking spreadsheet. It's not a spreadsheet, I said. She slammed her palm lightly on the table. Not enough to scare me, just enough to show outrage. Whatever. It's pathetic, she said. It's sad. Then she hit me with the first emotional reversal, making me the villain for wanting fairness. You always ruin everything, she said. I let the silence sit for half a second, then I delivered the line I'd rehearsed in my head all night. I'm not ruining your birthday, I said calmly. I'm saving our living situation from a lie. She blinked, like she didn't expect me to have an answer that clean. Then she tried to bulldoze it with intensity. No, she said, shaking her head. No, you're ruining it. You're literally ruining it right now. You could have picked any day. Any day. But you chose today because you're petty. I didn't argue her accusation. I repeated my line. I'm not ruining your birthday. I'm saving our living situation from a lie. Her nostrils flared. She pushed her chair back slightly. You're cold, she said. Do you hear how cold you sound? I didn't take the bait. Say what you want about how I sound, I said. The situation is what it is. And that's when she pivoted again, away from facts entirely, straight into moral judgment. She looked at me like I just admitted I didn't believe in love. This is honestly so depressing, she said. Like, wow, you're really that kind of guy. You have no heart. There it was. Not, are you overwhelmed? Not, did I miss something? Just, you're a bad person. She wanted to make me defend my character instead of discussing the reality of our life. And I could feel the trap. If I started arguing, no, I do have a heart, we'd be off the topic completely. We'd be in the emotional maze where she wins by making me prove I'm not cruel. So I stayed on the one thing she couldn't twist. I'm not heartless, I said. I'm done being taken for granted. Her eyes went glossy, not with sadness exactly, more like she was gearing up to deploy tears as leverage. Wow, she whispered. So that's what you think of me. That's not what I said, I replied. But it's what you meant, she insisted. You're basically saying I'm not good enough, that I don't do anything, that I'm a burden. I took a breath, slow. I'm saying we're not living like partners, I said. We're living like I'm responsible and you're optional. That made her sit back like I'd slapped her. And then she fired the nuclear moral button. It was my birthday, she said, louder, my birthday, and you're doing this. She said it like those words should end the conversation, like birthday was a legal shield. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't get emotional. I just repeated the hammer line again, exactly the same. I'm not ruining your birthday, I said. I'm saving our living situation from a lie. She stared at me, shocked, like she expected me to cave, like she expected the word birthday to force me back into the role. She started pacing, moving her hands, getting theatrical, not screaming, but escalating. This is why people say men are emotionally unavailable, she said. This is why relationships fail. Because you can't just be loving. You have to make everything transactional. And it was wild, because the accusation was the opposite of reality. I wasn't making love transactional. I was pointing out that she had been treating my effort like a subscription service. But she didn't want to talk about effort. She wanted to talk about my meanness. Because that's the soft manipulation. If she can label my boundary as cruelty, she doesn't have to engage with the imbalance at all. I watched her cycle through it in real time. Deny the facts. Attack my tone. Attack my character. Hide behind the birthday. And the entire time, she never once said, I didn't realize you were carrying that. She never asked, how can we fix it? She never challenged the numbers. Not seriously. She didn't go line by line and say, that's wrong. She just kept repeating that I was cruel for bringing it up. Finally, she stopped pacing and looked at me with this tight, righteous expression, like she'd found the perfect moral high ground. "You know what?" she said. "This is disgusting. You're supposed to make me feel loved today, not make me feel like a roommate who owes you rent." And that was it. That sentence. Because it exposed the whole thing. She didn't want a partner conversation. She wanted permission. Permission to keep the dynamic exactly the way it was, where I carried the weight, and she got to feel special on demand. She wanted romance as a reward, without responsibility as a baseline. And sitting there, watching her argue about my cruelty instead of the reality on paper, I felt this calm settle over me. Not satisfaction, just clarity. Because right then I understood. She didn't want a surprise. She wanted a pass. A pass to keep expecting, keep hinting, keep receiving, while I kept managing everything and calling it love. She kept standing there like the conversation was supposed to end with me apologizing. Like I was supposed to look at her watery eyes, hear, "It's my birthday," and immediately revert back into the role, comfort her, reassure her, take the blame, make it right with the dinner reservation and a bouquet. And for a second, I felt the muscle memory in my body, the reflex to fix it. That's the part that scares you when you're the overfunctioner. You don't just choose the dynamic, your nervous system is trained to protect it. But I didn't move, I didn't soften, I didn't negotiate against myself. I just took a slow breath and said quietly, "Okay, then here's what's going to happen." She blinked, thrown off by the calm. "What?" she snapped. I pointed to the pages again. "We can be mad about the timing, we can be mad about my tone, we can be mad about whatever you want. But the imbalance is real, and I'm not going back to pretending." She scoffed. "So what? You're giving me an ultimatum?" I shook my head. "I'm giving us structure." That was the shift. Not an emotional argument, not "you hurt me," not "you don't appreciate me." Structure. Because I realized something. If I kept trying to win this on feelings, I'd lose. She was better at feelings. She could cry, moralize, guilt trip, and turn it into a story where I'm the villain. But structure? Structure doesn't care about your story. Structure just reveals what's real. So I laid out the principle first, because I needed her to understand this wasn't a punishment. It was a boundary. "Listen," I said, keeping my voice steady, "boundaries aren't disrespect. Boundaries are respect. They're how you make a relationship safe for both people." She crossed her arms like she was bracing for a lecture, but I didn't let it become one. "And equity," I added, "is what adult love looks like. Not perfect 50-50 every day, but a baseline that doesn't depend on one person carrying the whole load." She rolled her eyes, but she was listening, even if she hated it. Then I gave her the 3 rules. Simple, concrete, no room for interpretation. "Rule 1, I said. "We split expenses with a defined method." Her mouth opened like she was about to argue. I continued anyway. "Rent, due on the 1st. Your half transfers automatically. Utilities, same thing. If we keep splitting groceries, we either alternate weeks or we split at the end of the month. With receipts. But the key part is this. I am done paying and then chasing you. I'm done managing it." She snapped, "I don't need you to manage me." "Great," I said calmly. "Then this will be easy." That landed. Because it forced her into the logic. Either she's capable or she's admitting she's relying on me. I moved on before she could derail it. "Rule 2, I said. "We split tasks with a schedule." She scoffed. "Like roommates." "Yes," I said. "Like roommates. Because right now I'm not living with a partner. I'm living with someone who benefits from my effort by default." She glared at me. "That's not true." "It is," I said, "and the schedule isn't about controlling you. It's about making sure the basics don't depend on me noticing them and doing them." I tapped the calendar page. Trash and recycling, bathroom, floors, dishes, laundry, groceries, we rotate. If one of us is slammed that week, we can trade, but it's communicated, it's not assumed. And it's not, we should, it's assigned. She leaned forward, angry. "This is insane." I kept my voice level. "No, living in resentment is insane. This is normal." Then I gave the 3rd rule, the one she didn't expect, because it wasn't about chores or money. It was about the entitlement she'd built. "Rule 3, I said, "the automatic privileges stop." She blinked. "What does that even mean?" "It means I stop being the default manager of your life," I said. "No more me doing the reminders. No more me making your appointments. No more me running errands because you forgot. No more me fixing things while you treat it like background noise." She shook her head. "So you're just going to let things fall apart?" No, I said, you're going to handle your side, and I'm going to handle mine, and the shared stuff is shared. She laughed, bitter. Wow, you're really going all in on this. Yes, I said, because I should have done it months ago. She stared at me like she couldn't believe I was holding my ground, and I could feel her trying to find the angle, the emotional lever that would make me cave. So I made it crystal clear what this was and wasn't. I'm not saying we can't be loving, I said. I'm not saying we can't do sweet things. I'm not saying birthdays don't matter. Her jaw tightened. I'm saying romance can't be a reward you demand while you live like a customer. That line made her flinch. A customer? She repeated, offended. Yes, I said, because a customer expects service. They expect delivery. They expect someone else to handle the details. They show up and judge the experience. She opened her mouth to protest. And I'm not your service provider, I added. I'm your boyfriend, or I'm not. That was the real boundary. Not do chores or else. It was, I'm not playing a role that makes me smaller so you can feel bigger. She looked down at the papers again, then back up at me, eyes hard. So what? If I don't agree to your little system, you're going to leave? I didn't respond with drama. I didn't threaten. I didn't escalate. I just said the truth. If we can't live with basic fairness, I said, then yes, eventually this ends. Because I won't stay in a relationship where I'm constantly paying, financially, emotionally, mentally, and then getting called heartless when I ask for balance. Silence. The room felt different now, not heated, locked, because she realized I wasn't negotiating. I wasn't doing the thing where I set a boundary and then immediately soften it to keep her comfortable. I was serious. I slid the pages toward her again, slow and deliberate. These are the rules, I said, not to punish you, to protect us from pretending. She stared at them like they were a threat. And in a way, they were. Not a threat to her happiness. A threat to the system that let her be loved without being accountable. And as she sat there, I realized something else too. If she actually wanted romance, real romance, the kind built on trust and mutual effort, then these rules would feel like relief. But if she wanted a relationship where she could expect and receive without carrying weight, then these rules would feel like an attack. And that was the point. Because, for the first time, I wasn't measuring love by how much I could give. I was measuring it by whether we could stand on equal ground. The next 2 weeks weren't one big fight. They were 100 small ones. Not the loud kind. No screaming matches every night. It was more like the apartment turned into a pressure test. And every day revealed whether she could live in a relationship that didn't revolve around me quietly carrying everything. And what made it worse was how normal everything looked from the outside. If someone had seen us at the grocery store or passing in the hallway, they would have thought we were fine. But inside the apartment, the dynamic had changed, and she felt it like a temperature drop. Day 1, the split app. Action. I set up a split system and sent the first request. Calm, matter of fact. Rent and utilities, with a due date. No paragraphs, no guilt. Reaction. She stared at her phone like it had personally offended her. You seriously requested money from me? She asked, loud enough to make it a statement. Response. It's not personal, it's just the system. She didn't pay that day. She wanted me to remind her I didn't. Day 2, the first missed moment. Action trash was full. Normally I just take it out. Instead, I left it. It was her day on the schedule. Reaction. That evening, she walked into the kitchen, looked at the overflowing bag, and turned to me like I'd failed a test. Are you seriously just going to leave that? She asked. Response. It's on your day. She huffed, tied the bag aggressively, and muttered, This is so dumb. The entire time she walked it to the dumpster. Not I forgot, not my bad, just contempt, because she felt like she was being demoted from princess to participant. Day 3, the grocery divide. Action. I did groceries for myself only, not as a stunt. Quietly, I bought my food, my staples, my coffee. When I got home, I did the thing that felt symbolic, even though it was practical. I split the fridge. Left side, mine. Right side, hers. I didn't label it like a psycho, I just separated it. Reaction. She opened the fridge, saw the layout, and laughed in disbelief. Are we really doing this? She asked. Like we're roommates now? Response. We're adults who live together. This is how it stays fair. She shut the fridge harder than necessary and said, You're insane, under her breath. Then, later, she asked if she could just use a little of my milk. I didn't argue, I just said, response, if you use it, add it to the split. The way she looked at me, you would have thought I'd asked her to fill out tax forms. Day 4, the cleaning list goes up. Action. I printed the weekly schedule and taped it inside a cabinet door. Not in her face, not on the front door, just visible enough that nobody could pretend they didn't know. Reaction. She found it while grabbing a mug and immediately got sarcastic. Oh my God, she said, you actually posted it. Response, so it's clear for both of us. She stared at it, then at me. You've changed, she said, like it was an accusation. Response, I stopped pretending. That line ended more arguments than anything else. Because there's nothing to debate when someone's just describing reality. Day 5, the first victim mood. Action, I stayed consistent. I did my tasks. I didn't help on hers unless she asked directly. Reaction, she got quiet, not peaceful quiet, punishment quiet. She moved around the apartment like a ghost, making sure I noticed she was unhappy. No affection, short answers, heavy sighs. Finally, she said it. I feel like you don't even like me anymore. This was the pivot, turning accountability into emotional abandonment. Response, I like you. I'm just not carrying everything. She didn't respond to that. She just stared at her phone like she was gathering evidence for her case. Day 6, the requested half of the bill. Action, the internet bill hit. I paid it because it's in my name and sent her half immediately through the app. No drama. Reaction, she stormed into the living room with her phone in her hand. You really sent me a request for $48, she said, like it was humiliating. Response, yes, that's your half. She scoffed. This is so embarrassing. Couples don't do this. And that's when I realized she wasn't arguing about money. She was arguing about image. She wanted a relationship that looked effortless because effort was invisible, because I absorbed it. Response, couples also don't let one person cover everything. She paid it, angrily, like sending her share was a personal insult. Day 8, the first task she forgot. Action, bathroom day. It didn't get done. I didn't remind her, I didn't nag, I just left it. Reaction, by day 2 she noticed. Why is the bathroom gross? She asked. Response, it was on your day. She blinked, like she couldn't believe I said it again. I've been busy, she snapped. Response, then we can trade days. But it doesn't just disappear. That's when she realized the old loophole, ignoring the task until I do it, was closed. She did it, loudly, slamming cabinet doors and running the sink like it was a protest. Day 10, the "this isn't love" speech. Action, I kept doing exactly what I said I'd do, no speeches, no extra commentary, just consistency. Reaction, she tried a new angle, moral judgment. This isn't love, she said one night. Love isn't this, it's not rules and schedules. Response, love isn't one person carrying the whole life. She stared at me like she was waiting for me to crack. I didn't. Day 12, the moment that said everything. Action, I came home late from work and saw the kitchen messy, her mess. Normally I'd clean it so we could have a nice evening. I didn't. I cleaned my plate, my area, and went to bed. Reaction, she followed me into the bedroom. So you're just going to let me handle everything now? She asked, furious. That sentence was incredible because it revealed the assumption. Handle everything now? As if everything had ever been hers before. Response, no, I'm going to handle my half. She stood there, mouth open, like she couldn't compute a relationship where I wasn't the default solution. And that's what those 2 weeks really were. Not about chores, not about a bill-splitting app, not about a divided fridge. They were about withdrawal. I had stopped supplying the invisible labor that made her life feel effortless. And she was reacting the way people react when they realize the comfort they've been living in wasn't free. Someone was paying for it. Only now the bill was due. About a week into the new system, I realized we weren't just fighting inside the apartment anymore. She took it public. Not in a dramatic Facebook status way, in the quieter, more effective way, she started shopping for allies. It began with her friends. We were on the couch one night, barely talking, the kind of tense silence where the TV is just background noise, and she was texting like her life depended on it. Rapid thumbs, short bursts, then a little smirk like she'd just received backup. What? I asked. She didn't look up. Nothing. But her tone said everything. I'm not alone in this. People agree with me. The next day, I got my first clue. One of her friends, Ashley, posted an Instagram story that was clearly aimed at me without naming me. It was one of those, quote, graphics that people use to feel morally superior. If he wanted to, he would. Followed by, some men don't understand romance. I just stared at it for a second because it was so predictable it was almost funny. Almost. Then later that night, my girlfriend came home in a different mood than she'd been in all week. Not sad, not angry. Validated. She walked in, dropped her purse, and said, I talked to the girls. I didn't ask who. I already knew. And? I said. She shrugged like she was being casual, but she couldn't hide the satisfaction. They think it's messed up, she said. Like what you're doing. They said it's controlling. There it was, the reframe. Not he's asking for fairness. He's controlling. Because if she could label structure as control, she didn't have to confront the imbalance. She could turn it into a story where she's the victim of a cold boyfriend. I didn't bite. I just nodded and said, okay. She didn't like that either. She started pacing while she talked, building momentum like she was performing her case. They said you're basically punishing me, she continued. Like you're making me pay for everything because you're mad. I kept my eyes on her and asked one question. Did you tell them why I started doing it? She hesitated for half a second, and that hesitation told me everything. Because she didn't tell them the context. She didn't tell them about the constant reminders, the mental load. The way we should always meant I will. She told them the headline version, he ruined my birthday, and now he's nickel and diming me. And in that narrative, she's obviously the sympathetic one. Then it escalated beyond her friends. 2 days later, we had dinner planned with her sister and her sister's boyfriend. It was supposed to be casual, pizza, wine, catching up. I knew something was coming the moment we walked in. Her sister hugged her and immediately gave me a look, not hostile, but assessing. We sat down, started eating, small talk for about 10 minutes. Then her sister casually asked, so how's living together going? My girlfriend answered too quickly. It's been interesting, she said, doing that little laugh people do when they're trying to make conflict sound cute. He's kind of going through a phase. Her sister raised her eyebrows. A phase? My girlfriend glanced at me like she was daring me to contradict her. He's been really intense about money and chores, she said. Like he literally sent me requests for bills. It's just, honestly, it's been stressful. The sister's boyfriend shifted in his seat, suddenly very interested in his pizza. And I realized she'd set the table for me. This dinner wasn't a dinner. It was an intervention disguised as casual conversation. My girlfriend kept talking, warming up. He even made this schedule, she said, laughing like it was absurd, like we're roommates. And it's just weird because, I don't know, it makes me feel like he's punishing me. Her sister nodded slowly, like she was being compassionate. I watched it happen in real time. The story got framed before I said a word. If I defended myself emotionally, I'd look defensive. If I stayed quiet, I'd look guilty. If I got frustrated, I'd confirm her narrative. So I did exactly what I told myself I'd do. I responded once, calm, clean, no emotion. I set my fork down, looked at her sister, then looked at my girlfriend, and I said, I'm not punishing her. I made our living situation symmetrical. Silence. Not awkward silence, sharp silence. Like the room had been expecting drama and got a statement instead. My girlfriend's eyes widened a little. Symmetrical? She repeated, like I'd used a word she didn't like. Yes, I said, meaning shared responsibilities and shared costs, without one person managing everything. Her sister's face shifted, not fully to my side, but into uncertainty. Because symmetrical is hard to argue with, unless you want to say, out loud, that you prefer it uneven. My girlfriend tried to recover fast. But why now? She said, looking at her sister like she needed her to jump back in. Why do it like this? It's like he wants to make a point. I didn't argue. I didn't list numbers. I didn't go into the dossier. I just said one more sentence, still calm. I've been carrying most of it for a long time. This is just the first time I stopped hiding it. Her sister blinked, processing. Her boyfriend cleared his throat and said quietly, splitting stuff is pretty normal. And my girlfriend snapped her head toward him like he'd betrayed her. What? She said. He shrugged, immediately uncomfortable. I'm just saying, like, it's not crazy. That was the key moment. Not because he fully sided with me, but because for the first time, someone outside the apartment didn't automatically validate her feelings. They hesitated. They looked at each other. They did that thing people do when the story they were told doesn't fully match the reality they're hearing. And my girlfriend felt it. You could see it in the way her posture changed. She wasn't getting the clean support she expected. So she pivoted, right back to the safe argument. My character. Whatever, she said, pushing her plate away. It's just sad. I don't want to live like that. I didn't chase her emotionally. I didn't plead. I just nodded once and said, okay. Because at that point, I understood something important. She didn't want people to understand. She wanted people to take her side. She wasn't looking for a solution. She was trying to pressure me, through embarrassment, through social judgment, into going back to the old system. And that dinner proved it. Because the moment an outside person didn't fully back her narrative, she didn't ask, wait, am I missing something? She got angry. And that's when I knew this wasn't about a birthday anymore. It was about whether she could handle a relationship where love didn't come with a built-in service plan. After that dinner, the social leverage didn't work the way she wanted. She didn't get the clean, you're right, he's awful validation. She got hesitation. She got awkward silence. She got a couple of people who clearly thought splitting things is normal. And that made her furious, because if she couldn't win through public opinion, she had to switch tactics. So she went emotional. Not in a cartoonish way. In that very human, very effective way where someone stops debating the facts and starts pulling on your guilt like it's a rope tied around your chest. It started the next night. We were in the living room and she was acting strangely sweet, too sweet. She made tea, sat close to me, leaned her head on my shoulder like nothing had happened. Then, out of nowhere, she sighed and said softly, I just don't understand why you're being like this. I didn't respond right away. I'd learned that if I filled the silence, I'd end up negotiating against myself. She sat up and looked at me with this sad expression, big eyes, almost watery. If you loved me, she said, slow and deliberate, you wouldn't treat me like this. There it was. Not, I didn't realize you were overwhelmed. Not, let's figure it out. Just a direct attempt to redefine my boundary as proof I didn't love her. A year ago, that would have hooked me instantly. I would have panicked. I would have rushed to reassure her. I would have explained myself until I was exhausted. But I didn't. I looked at her and answered with the shortest truth I had. Love isn't being taken for granted. She blinked, like she didn't expect a line that simple. What? She asked, almost offended. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't elaborate. I love you, I said. But love isn't me doing everything and you getting comfortable with it. Her eyes filled faster now, like she was turning on the faucet. This is so mean, she whispered. You're making me feel like a burden. I held my ground. I'm making you feel the reality, I said. That's different. That's when the tears came, real tears, not fake, but still weaponized in the sense that they were meant to trigger my old pattern. Comfort, backtrack, fix. She wiped her face and shook her head like she was devastated. I can't believe you did that to me, she said. On my birthday, you made a list. Her voice cracked on the word list, like it was a crime. In a special moment, she continued, you handed me paperwork. I stayed steady. I didn't do it to hurt you, I said. I did it because I can't keep living in a pretend version of our relationship. She stared at me through tears. So you're just done being nice now? That question was sneaky, because it implies that fairness is cruelty, and my previous overgiving was nice. I didn't let her frame it that way. I'm done being invisible, I said. She shook her head like she couldn't accept it. This doesn't feel like love, she insisted. It feels like you're punishing me. I repeated the core truth again, because repetition is how you stop getting dragged into emotional chaos. Love isn't being taken for granted. She tried another angle. I'm going through a hard time, she said, voice trembling. My work has been stressful, you know that. And instead of supporting me, you're doing this. And that one actually landed for a second, because it sounded reasonable. Of course you support your partner when they're stressed. But I realized what she was doing. She was trying to make support mean resume the old system. She wanted my support to be unlimited, unconditional labor. So I answered carefully, still short. I will support you, I said, but support isn't me carrying the entire house while you opt out. She looked away, wiping her cheeks aggressively. Then she went quiet, too quiet. And when she turned back to me, her voice was calmer, colder. So what do you want, she asked. You want me to beg? You want me to say I'm a terrible girlfriend? Is that what you want? This was another trap. If I said yes, I looked cruel. If I said no, she'd say, then why are you doing this? So I stayed on the practical lane. I want a plan, I said. Not guilt, not tears, a plan. She frowned. A plan? Yes, I said. A timeline. That word made her stiffen, because timelines imply consequences. I'm not doing this forever, I continued. We need to decide if we're actually changing the way we live, or if we're just going to keep cycling through fights and pretending nothing's wrong. Her mouth tightened. So you're threatening to leave? No, I said. I'm refusing to live in limbo. She stared at me like she was trying to find the crack in my calm. I leaned forward slightly, not aggressive, just clear. Here's what I need, I said. 2 weeks. We follow the system for real. Bills on time. Tasks on schedule. No, I forgot. Without a fix. No silent expecting me to cover it. She opened her mouth. I held up a hand gently. And if that feels impossible, I added, then we stop pretending. Because I'm not interested in a relationship where the only time you feel loved is when I'm overfunctioning. She sat back, stunned. The tears paused, not because she wasn't emotional, but because she realized the usual tools weren't moving me. She tried one last soft punch. I just wanted to feel special, she said quietly. I nodded once. I get that. Then I said the final truth, simple and unmovable. You can be special to me, but you can't be special at my expense. Silence filled the room again. And that's when I knew the real stress test wasn't whether she could cry. It was whether she could shift from emotional leverage to actual accountability. Because if the only way she knows how to keep me is guilt, then she didn't want a partner. She wanted someone she could control with feelings. The turning point didn't happen during a screaming match. It didn't happen when she cried. It didn't happen when her friends weighed in. It didn't happen when she called me cold or accused me of punishing her. It happened on a random Tuesday night, in the most ordinary moment possible, because that's where the truth always slips out. I came home late. Work had been brutal. I was tired in that deep, bone-level way where you don't even want to talk, you just want to exist in quiet for 10 minutes. The apartment was dim, the kind of early evening light that makes everything look softer than it is. I could smell something sweet. She'd lit a candle. She was on the couch in one of those oversized sweaters, laptop open, legs tucked under her like she was trying to look small and harmless. Hey, she said, too casual. Hey, I replied, dropping my keys in the bowl by the door. For a second, it almost felt normal. Like maybe the past 2 weeks had been a weird storm and we were moving into calm again. I walked into the kitchen and saw it immediately. The counter was cluttered, dishes in the sink, takeout containers from lunch still sitting out. Nothing catastrophic, just the kind of mess that, before all of this, I would have cleaned without thinking. The kind of mess she'd leave because she knew the apartment would reset by magic. By me. I didn't react, I didn't sigh, I didn't do the dramatic, look at this thing. I simply washed my hands, poured a glass of water, and leaned against the counter for a moment, letting the day drain out of me. Behind me, I heard her close her laptop. Then her voice came, sweet as sugar, like she was offering a peace treaty. Babe, she said, can you do me a quick favor? That phrase, quick favor, used to be nothing. It used to be part of our normal rhythm. It used to mean I'd automatically step in, solve the problem, and feel good about being helpful. But now it had weight. Because quick favor had become her way of trying to bypass the new system. A backdoor into the old dynamic. I turned slightly. What's up? She stood up and walked toward me. Soft smile, gentle tone, like she was trying to remind me who she could be when she wanted something. I have this client call tomorrow morning, she said. I'm really behind on the concept board and I'm stressed. Can you run to Target and pick up a few things? Target? Of course. Just like printer paper, sticky notes, and maybe those little photo frames, she said. And can you grab dinner too? Something easy. My brain is fried. She said it like it was reasonable, like it was normal, like we'd never had any of these conversations. Like my time was still the default resource. I looked at her, not angry, Not disappointed, just present. And I asked myself one question. If I say yes, what am I teaching her? That my boundaries are temporary, that all she has to do is be stressed and sweet and I'll revert. So I answered the way I'd promised myself I would. Calm, clean, no emotion to argue with. No, I said. Just that. No explanation, no apology, no heat. Her smile froze. Wait, what? She asked, blinking like she didn't understand the word. I'm not doing that, I said, still even. Her face tightened immediately. Are you serious? Yes. She let out a sharp laugh, like she was trying to shame me back into compliance. Oh my God, she said. It's literally one thing. You can't do one thing for me? I held her gaze. You can do it! Her eyes widened, offended. I'm working. So am I said. She stared at me like she couldn't believe what she was hearing. This was the moment where, in the past, I would have softened. I would have said, okay, fine, I'll go, just to keep the peace, just to stop the tension from spreading through the apartment like smoke. But I didn't move. I didn't fight her, I didn't insult her, I didn't go back through the history. I just stayed still in the truth. And she didn't know what to do with that. Her voice went higher. So you're just not going to help me anymore? Like, at all? That's not what I said, I replied. I'm not doing this one. She stepped closer. Why? She demanded. Because that question is always the same. It doesn't mean explain. It means give me something I can argue with. So I kept it simple. Because this is exactly what we've been talking about, I said. You're stressed, you ask, and I'm expected to solve it. She scoffed. Wow, so now I can't even ask you for a favor? You can ask, I said, and I can say no. That sentence hit her like a slap because it exposed the one thing she wasn't used to, my autonomy. Her face flushed. This is crazy, she muttered. This is not how couples act. I didn't react. I took a sip of water. And then she went for the emotional trigger she'd been using for days, the one she thought would always work. She crossed her arms and said bitterly, okay, so you just don't care anymore. There it was. The accusation dressed up as a conclusion. The attempt to make my boundary equal indifference. And for half a second, I felt the old reflex again, the urge to correct it, reassure her, prove that I cared. But I didn't, because I realized that proving I cared was how she kept getting me to trade my boundaries away. So I answered with the line that had been forming in my chest for weeks. I looked at her, calm and steady, and I said, I care enough not to trade my dignity for peace. The room went silent. Not a dramatic movie silence. Just the kind of silence that happens when someone hears a sentence that changes the rules. She blinked like she didn't understand it at first. Then her eyes narrowed. Dignity? She repeated like it was offensive. So helping me is beneath you now? No, I said. Helping you isn't beneath me. Being expected to fix everything because it's easier for you is? She took a step back, stunned. So you're really doing this, she said quietly. You're really turning into this person. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't insult her. This person is me, I said. The version you're mad at is the version that stopped overcompensating. She shook her head, angry and hurt at the same time. I can't believe you, she whispered. And I nodded once because I finally understood what that meant. She couldn't believe I was serious. She couldn't believe that no was now a complete sentence. She couldn't believe that I wasn't afraid of the tension anymore. Because for a long time, the tension was the weapon, the silence, the disappointment, the moralizing, the tears. All of it was designed to make me surrender, not because I agreed, but because I couldn't stand the discomfort. And that's what peace had really been in our apartment. It wasn't harmony. It was me absorbing everything. So when I said I wouldn't trade my dignity for peace, what I really meant was, I'm not buying calm with my self-respect anymore. She stood there, breathing hard, like she wanted to keep fighting, but she didn't have a clean angle. Because dignity is hard to argue with without revealing what you expect from someone. Finally, she said, softer, almost like she was testing the water. So what am I supposed to do? And I almost laughed, not because it was funny, but because it was the most honest question she'd asked in weeks. What am I supposed to do if you don't automatically do it for me? I answered calmly. You're supposed to do what adults do, I said. You plan. You handle your responsibilities. You ask for help sometimes, and you accept no sometimes. And you don't punish me emotionally when I don't rescue you." She looked away, jaw tight. For a moment, I thought she might actually hear me. But then she said the quiet part out loud, without meaning to. "This is exhausting," she muttered. And I looked at her and thought, yeah, it is. For you now. Because for the first time, she was feeling a fraction of what I'd been carrying every day. Only hers came with indignation, and mine had come with silence. That night, she didn't go to Target. She didn't order dinner. She didn't do anything dramatic. She just went back to the couch, opened her laptop, and started working again with this stiff, resentful posture. And I went into the bedroom, changed, and sat on the edge of the bed, listening to the quiet of the apartment. Not peaceful quiet. Honest quiet. Because that was the turning point. Not the words. The fact that I said no without anger. And the fact that she immediately translated that no into, "You don't care," which told me everything I needed to know about what she thought my care was supposed to look like. She didn't want a partner who chose her. She wanted a partner who defaulted to her. And I cared enough, finally, to refuse that deal. After that Tuesday night, something in the apartment shifted permanently. Not because we broke up right then. We didn't. We still slept in the same bed. We still said hey and bye. We still moved around each other like a couple on paper. But the atmosphere was different, like the air had gone thin. She stopped trying to argue the system directly. She stopped attacking the numbers. She stopped fighting the schedule. Instead, she did something subtler. She emotionally checked out while she looked for a way to replace what she'd lost. And I could feel it. She was colder but not sad. She was distant but not reflective. It wasn't grief. It was scouting. Like she was thinking, if he won't do it anymore, I'll find someone who will. It showed up in little things. She'd suddenly be out more, meeting a friend, networking, just getting a drink. Always vague, always last minute, always with her phone tilted away from me on the couch like privacy had become a new religion. She'd come home with that slightly too bright energy people have when they want you to ask questions. "You have fun?" I'd ask. "Yeah," she'd say. It was nice. And then she'd wait, like she wanted me to dig. I didn't. Because I already knew what was happening. She wasn't cheating yet. At least I didn't have proof. But she was testing the marketplace. She was looking for comfort. For someone who didn't require accountability as the price of admission. Meanwhile, the system was still in place. I kept splitting bills. I kept doing my half of the chores. I stopped rescuing her from her half. And the apartment became a mirror she couldn't stand looking into. The breaking point came at the end of the second week, the timeline I'd given her. It was a Sunday evening, quiet, gray, the kind of day where you can't hide behind distractions. I'd done my tasks. The place was clean enough. Not Instagram clean, just functional, adult. She walked in from the balcony where she'd been on the phone for half an hour. Her face was set, like she'd made a decision and rehearsed it. "We need to talk," she said. I nodded. "Okay." She didn't sit down. She stayed standing, arms folded, like she was trying to maintain control of the moment. "I can't do this," she said. I didn't react. Do what? "This," she snapped, gesturing at the apartment like the walls were the problem. "This system. This weird roommate vibe. This constant accounting." I let her have the words. I didn't interrupt. Because I wanted to see if she would say anything like, "I didn't realize you were carrying so much." Or "I want to fix it." Or even just, "I'm sorry." She didn't. She just continued building her case against my boundaries. "I don't want to feel like I have to prove myself," she said. "I don't want to feel monitored. I don't want to live with rules." I kept my voice neutral. "No one is monitoring you. You're just being asked to participate." Her eyes flashed. "See? That. You always talk like I'm some child." "I'm not talking like you're a child," I said. "I'm talking like we're adults." She shook her head hard, like she was done hearing it. "I want a relationship that feels natural," she said, "not transactional." I nodded slowly. "Then you should be in a relationship where things are naturally reciprocal." That hit her. You could tell because she paused just a half second, then went straight past it. "I've been thinking," she said, voice suddenly calmer, more final. "Maybe we rushed moving in. Maybe we're just not compatible." There it was. Not, "I want to grow up with you." Not, "I want to meet you in the middle." Just, "I don't like the terms anymore." I looked at her for a moment, and I felt something surprisingly clean inside me. Relief. Because hearing her say it out loud confirmed what I'd been trying to deny. She didn't want partnership. She wanted comfort. And comfort, to her, meant me doing the invisible work without asking for anything in return. "Okay," I said. She blinked. "Okay?" "Yes," I said. "Okay." I think she expected begging, or bargaining, or a sudden romantic rescue plan that would prove I still cared. Instead, she got a calm acceptance. And that made her angry again. "So you're just fine with this?" she demanded. I chose my words carefully because this was the last moment that mattered. "I'm not happy," I said, "but I'm not surprised, and I'm not going back." Her jaw tightened. "You're really going to throw away our relationship over chores and bills?" And I didn't let her reframe it that way. Not anymore. "No," I said. "I'm ending a relationship where I'm expected to pay for peace with my dignity." That silence hit different, heavy, real. She looked around like she was searching for a line that would make her the victim again, something she could repeat later to friends, so the story stayed simple. Then she said quietly, "Fine." And the next part happened fast, like once she realized I wasn't going to chase, she wanted to regain control by leaving first. "I'll stay with my sister for a while," she said. "Okay," I replied. "I'll get my things this week." "Okay." Every time I said okay, her face tightened more, because it meant I wasn't doing the emotional labor of arguing her into staying. That's what she wanted, a fight she could win. Instead, she got a door that opened. Over the next few days, she packed in waves. At first, she took the easy stuff, clothes, makeup, her laptop. Then she came back for the rest. Shoes, decor, the throw blankets she'd bought, the little aesthetic items that had made the apartment feel like hers. She left behind the boring things, the cleaning supplies, the extra batteries, the tools, the folder with the lease documents. Of course. The last day, she came with her sister's boyfriend and a couple of boxes. She barely looked at me, like eye contact would make it real. When she finished loading the car, she came back inside one more time. She stood by the door, keys in her hand, and she finally said the thing she'd been circling for weeks. "I just wanted to feel special," she said, softer now. And for a second, I almost felt that old reflex. Comfort her, smooth it over, give her a clean ending. But I didn't lie, not anymore. "I know," I said. "And I wanted to feel like we were a team." She swallowed, eyes glossy, then hardened again. "This could have been different," she said, like it was my fault. "It could have," I agreed, "but it would have required both of us." She stared at me, waiting for more. I gave her the final line, the one that ended it without cruelty. "Take care of yourself," I said, "for real." She nodded once, turned, and walked out. The door clicked shut, and the apartment went quiet. Not the tense quiet we'd had for weeks. A clean quiet. And standing there, I realized something that hit harder than any argument. She didn't leave because I was mean. She left because fairness made her uncomfortable. And that was the answer I'd been trying to get the whole time. Not through a fight. Through reality. After she left, the apartment felt almost too quiet. Not lonely in a dramatic way, just honest. Like the constant background tension had finally stopped humming in the walls. And I'm not going to pretend I was instantly fine. I wasn't. It sucked. It hurt. I replayed the conversation 100 times, wondering if I could have said it differently, timed it differently, softened it more. But every time my brain tried to bargain, maybe you should have just done the flowers, maybe you should have waited, maybe you should have, I'd circle back to the same truth. If a relationship only works when one person is overfunctioning, it's not really working. It's just being maintained. So here's what I learned from the whole thing, and I'm saying this without trying to sound like some motivational speaker, just as someone who finally got tired of lying to himself. 1. Unspoken expectations turn into debt. When you don't talk about what you expect, who pays what, who does what, who carries what, you don't avoid conflict, you just delay it. And what fills the gap is assumption. One person assumes, we're a team. The other person assumes, they've got it. And then, slowly, the person doing more starts collecting a silent debt. Not because they're petty, because they're human. You can't keep giving without clarity and not eventually feel it. The scary part is, you can both think you're being reasonable the entire time. Until one day, it explodes over something that seems small, like a birthday. 1. Reciprocity isn't 50-50 every day. It's balance over time. Some weeks, one person carries more. That's normal. Life isn't symmetrical in real time. But there's a difference between support and a system. Support is, I'm slammed this week. Can you cover me? I'll get you back. A system is, you'll cover me every week and I'll call you cold when you mention it. Healthy couples don't keep score by the hour, but they do have a shared sense of fairness. The moment you lose that shared sense, when one person stops noticing the other person's effort, you don't have a partnership anymore. You have a provider and a consumer. 1. If you have to pay to be loved, it's not love, it's comfortable habit. This one hurt the most to admit, because I wasn't being asked for love. I was being asked to keep proving love through output, through what I provided, through planning, paying, fixing, anticipating. And the moment I stopped providing at the same level, the love got questioned. That tells you something. Real love doesn't disappear when you set a boundary. Real love might be challenged by it, but it doesn't punish you for it. If your relationship needs you to keep overgiving to stay peaceful, that peace is not peace. It's a transaction you're funding. 1. A boundary isn't a threat. It's a definition of reality. For a long time, I treated boundaries like aggression, like if I said no or asked for fairness, I was being harsh. But a boundary isn't do this or else. A boundary is this is what I can live with, this is what I can't. It's not about controlling someone else. It's about being honest about what you'll participate in. And if the other person hears your boundary as a threat, that usually means the old dynamic benefited them more than they wanted to admit. 1. A birthday measures romance. Living together measures character. A birthday is easy. It's one day. It's flowers and dinner and a sweet moment and a picture for Instagram. Co-living is different. Co-living is who takes out the trash when no one's watching? Who notices the bills? Who carries the mental load when life is boring and repetitive and unglamorous? Who does the work that doesn't get applause? Romance is the highlight reel. Character is the routine. And the truth is, you can be with someone who loves the highlight reel without respecting the routine. That's how you end up in a relationship where you feel used without ever being explicitly used. That's what happened to me. So if you take anything from this story, let it be this. Don't wait until resentment becomes your personality. Don't wait until the only way you can be heard is by blowing up a special day. Talk early. Define the system. Make expectations explicit before they turn into debts. Because once you hit that point where someone needs your overfunctioning to feel loved, you're not choosing love anymore. You're renting it. And that's the line I'm ending on, because it's the only honest way to summarize what happened. She was waiting for the surprise. I gave her reality. And reality, at least, doesn't lie. So AITA for ruining her birthday? Because from her perspective, I turned her special day into an audit. From my perspective, I finally stopped pretending our relationship was fair. What would you have done? Play it romantic and keep the peace, or have the real conversation and risk blowing everything up? Drop your judgment in the comments, AITA, NTA, ESH, or NAH, and tell me why. And if you want more stories like this, with updates and real consequences, make sure you like and subscribe so you don't miss the next one.